I'm Jamin Brazil, an entrepreneur best known for starting Decipher, a software solution that gathers consumer feedback for 75% of the Fortune 100, including Netflix, Twitter, and Walmart. Get fresh insights, get inspired, and see what's trending. Join me as we discover together how market research is developing today.
Welcome back to the Happy Market Research Podcast, and thank you for listening. I'm Alexandra, and I'm here with Jamin.
Hello, everybody.
So I am super excited about the topic that we're covering today, Jamin. Recently, Microsoft announced that they're adding a new call recording feature to Skype, which seems like for the market research industry, maybe not something that we should be paying attention to, but why should we?
So I think that the reason that I brought this up to you is a really interesting story for us to cover in Happy Market Research Podcast is because technology is continuing to take the ground that market research has traditionally filled. When you think about what market research actually does, fundamentally is it connects a question with an answer. Mm-hmm. So you can ask me a question and I'll give you an answer. If you have 100 customers, you could ask 10 of them a question and you'll get an answer, right? Mm-hmm. If you have 1 million customers, now all of a sudden it becomes an operational issue. How in the world do you get and consolidate 1 million different voices? And so market research has really been filling this gap between, it's a logistical gap between the brand, whether it's Clorox or whatever, and the voice of the consumer, how they're feeling about the product, the user experience, the whatever it is. So you understand that framework, and then you think about the next level, which is what technology does. Technology really just fundamentally accomplishes two things for us. It keeps us entertained, Netflix, et cetera, and it makes our lives better through speed. It's all about improving operational efficiency. Right. So, texting is better than calling because it's more convenient, mm-hmm. right? Gotcha. We all see that. So, there's a lot of companies that have been set up in the market research space that have traditionally just delivered against this sort of technological opportunity. Decipher, company I started, is a great example of that, where you've got a software solution for asking a series of questions to a group of consumers asynchronously. But now you're seeing those same tools integrated into things like WordPress. Mm-hmm. So you can conduct surveys directly through and at no cost. So the barrier to entry to actually conduct the execution of the research to get the voice of the consumer is getting less and less and less. And that's why, what Microsoft's doing, everybody has Skype, right? Who has a PC, and it's ubiquitous technology. We've all used it. We all use it regularly. Then the question becomes, how does that impact the market research space from a operational consideration? Like, is the value really in us delivering against, we can conduct this type of research for you? And then I think it changes the real value prop from the logistical consideration into the why. So now it isn't just about me conducting the research. Now it's much more about me understanding what that consumer is telling you, how they're viscerally connecting to your brand, where the opportunities for improvement are, and what's going really well from a messaging and experience perspective.
Interesting. So truly leveraging the power of analysis on that data that you're collecting, whether it be through tools like Decipher or even Skype, which is democratizing this access. Exactly.
The democratization of the access to the voice of the consumer, the mind of the consumer is what is changing here, mm-hmm. right? And that's why, if you look at the market research space, let's call it $50 to $60 billion. It's huge, but it has not been growing proportional to data. The volume of data that exists today is so much greater than it was even 12 months ago, and so on and so on. So, you wonder why that disconnect, why we're not seeing the growth in market research, which is, again, mm-hmm. what consumers are thinking and feeling. And the reason being is because brands are accessing that voice through other technologies, right? I mean, you've got Facebook polls, you've got Twitter surveys. There's just a ton of different ways that now research tradition. Now the answer to that, the rebuttal is, well, it's not professional, right?
But do businesses care?
And exactly right. And the businesses, the people that are conducting the research, it isn't that they don't have the sophistication, they just don't have the background to care, like me with 2 decades worth of experience in the space. I mean, so this is the point. When I first started research in the mid 90s, research had a screening question. Every survey, every whether it was for qualitative or quantitative, every project we did had one question, which was, have you participated in a market research project in the last 6 months? You know how many times I've seen that question on a screener at Decipher or Focus Vision?
Oh, 500,000 times.
0.
Oh, why
Right.
0? Why?
Exactly, 0 times. Because now we don't care if people have taken surveys. Before it was a concern that, this person is a professional respondent, and they'll bias the results.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? But now it's, the way that we get people to take surveys isn't through random digit dialing, it's through professional panels that are managed. So it's probably the case that somebody that takes your survey today has taken several surveys today, right? So we've just basically forgotten about that, that history, right?
Right.
Because of the way that the market has shaped itself, in the way that we access the consumer voice. And that's the broader point, I think, is, we are still tethering ourselves as market researchers to, we're doing it right, gosh darn it. But the reality is that the market has moved past that. And we're sitting here just basically chasing them. Right.
Interesting.
And the way that we get in front is less and less about the technological benefits that we can bring, and more about how we analyze and add value to that insight so that the business can answer that business question and move quickly.
Right. So springboarding off of all of that, given the current environment of IoT, the Internet of Things, should market research, instead of always being in a defensive position, should we be embracing this? Should we be looking to integrate rather than compete? And what should companies do that already have, say, video capturing programs or voice capturing programs? Because many companies have already spent a great deal of money and time putting into their own tech in this exact space. So how do they reframe that to be, this can be maybe an advantage rather than a disadvantage?
I think, technology in the market research space is going to continue to thrive. The challenge, though, becomes less, again, about the basics and more about the advanced.
Right.
So when you think about artificial intelligence, machine learning, sentiment analysis, facial recognition, those identifying the emotional highs and lows for respondents at scale, then it gets really interesting. So there's this whole movement of blended or qualitative and quantitative combined, or qualitative at scale is another way of saying that. I mean, you've got a company like Remesh, where what they do is a synchronous moderated chat discussion where respondents between as few as 10 and as many as 1,000 are recruited to participate in a 30-minute to hour-long group discussion. It's moderated in real time, and as the participants see the questions that are provided by the moderator, they respond, and then it feeds back to all the respondents, all the participants, what everybody else is saying. And so it just ultimately creates a better question that then gets refined to be a better question to really get at the intent or the answer or the why the consumer is, it isn't just about where's your favorite place to vacation. Through asking that question, what Remesh is actually answering is what are the top vacation choices, but then also why are they choosing those things, you see? And so that's where I think applying artificial intelligence becomes really impactful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to pull this out to a larger and overarching theme. I'm always interested in how details are sort of illustrative of a greater or grander picture. So how does this parallel other trends that we've seen in tech that also, quote unquote, cut out market research as the middleman?
So, I mean, the technology cutting out market research as the middleman. The middleman there again gets to the operational consideration of what we deliver.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So the value is always in the insight. The insight is always, the quality of the insight is always derived by how we gather that insight. So that's why methodology is so important. Mm-hmm. And then the context of that consumer voice can't be forgotten about. So if I were to conduct a survey with you right now and say, 15-minute survey where you're exposed to different stimuli and you respond, versus when you're by yourself at home on a website being exposed to content, right? I mean, thinking about like Facebook ads and their A/B testing, mm-hmm. I think you can test 6, it might be more than that, ads right now in a single Facebook campaign. Mm-hmm. So, in that context, again, the value for the end consumer, the person that's posting the ads and the brand that's paying for it, or not the consumer, sorry, the company that's posting the ads.
Right.
The value there is, okay, I know this one is winning, right? But I don't know the why it's winning.
Right.
And so that's where the market researcher is able to come in and add that value. So you see the displacement. Traditionally, in fact, Intuit's a great example. They used to do concept testing and ad testing with me at Decipher, in 2001, where they would give me several different ads and we'd roll them and get consumer choice, okay? You can literally do that exact same thing with Facebook as you're purchasing the ads.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So
yeah.
Everything is the same. It's just the workflow has entirely cut out the 2 weeks or week of research. And instead of full launching their advertising campaign, they will drip launch it. So 10% identify the optimal scenario or the optimal ad, and then just go all in on that ad or group of ads, right?
Right.
But I want to underscore again the importance of understanding the why.
Right.
So in the 2016 presidential election, this has been verified by a number of sources. I can't disclose who, but people that were close with both the Obama campaign and then later the Hillary campaign noticed that the Hillary campaign shifted their spend from qualitative into quantitative, because they felt like more surveys and broader reach would provide better value to the messaging. It would inform the writers. It would inform Hillary. What was missed was why voters were saying what they were saying. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you had a mix match in her communication or her brand's communication to the populace.
Yeah.
And then a material miss when it came down to it's time to vote,
right?
And so, what you don't want to do is take out research from your process, because now the temptation is I can A/B test it with my Facebook ads, so I know which one wins. I don't really care the why, but in not understanding the why that one ad is winning, then you are missing an opportunity to put the customer at the middle of what it is that you're delivering.
Right.
The ad, sorry, really quick.
Yeah.
The ad is attracting them to buy.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And you need to know why that's an attractive ad, because you got to make sure that matches what's purchased.
Mm-hmm. And even on a pragmatic scale, if you understand the underlying meaning behind that action on the part of the consumer, that means that you can reduplicate that across multiple iterations when you understand the greater context. Whereas then you're sending out 6 different ads and A/B testing them for every single time that you put it out, because you haven't truly identified the underlying aspect of what's happening.
You always start with a consumer persona. Anytime you have a product, that's just definitional from a marketing perspective, from a product perspective. I mean, who are you delivering? What is the use case, right? And the more that you can inform that use case and understand who that consumer is, the better you're able to, not just attract the customer, but ultimately deliver against what it is that they need.
So then how does market research fill this gap? What would you advocate for businesses? Should they bring a market researcher in-house to analyze this data for them? Should they use consulting for insights externally? Does it depend on the size of the business, that sort of thing? So how do we solve this problem and meet this gap where businesses really need it?
So every business has got to address these issues. And I believe every business that's successful is. To your point, size does matter. So Procter & Gamble is going to have a different size tool than a startup I met with this morning, Created with Love. So, this particular company's, it's literally 3 employees. It's a startup, and they deliver a date in a box once a month. Super easy concept, right?
Yeah.
So they recently incorporated surveys into the purchase process. Mm-hmm. So somebody logs into or goes to the website. They go for a purchase. There's 2 questions in the purchase process that asks them why they're purchasing it and what they hope to get out of it, right? So you think about the value of those 2 questions, and they're doing about 2,000 boxes a month, right? So they're getting a lot of feedback, okay?
Right.
Which then creates, I think, the technological opportunity for market research to come in at a low cost natural language processing solution that plugs into their existing website or Google Forms or whatever it is that they're using. Right? In this case, they're using Typeform, right? And they're using 4 different SaaS-based solutions to accomplish this goal.
Yep,
right?
Internet of Things. We
The
already
Internet
talked
of
about
Things.
that.
Yeah, right. So, adding one more in at whatever it scales at, a few $100s a month based on their, current usage, makes a heck of a lot of sense. So,
Interesting. Very cool. So the tech industry is obviously, it's always going to innovate. It's always going to move forward. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, the market research industry tends to be conservative. It's always interested in what's proven. It's interested in the facts. Even at the core of research, you're talking about what happened yesterday, how people felt yesterday. And you have the opportunity to strike a really interesting balance as both a market researcher looking to the past, but also an entrepreneur and someone who's been very involved with tech looking to the future. So you balance these very well. So I want to know, what advice would you give to the market research industry as they continue to adapt to this morass of technology that's coming so fast and so furious?
You got to put a stake in the ground, and you have to have an opinion. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, so market research is unbiased. It gives you a third-party view of your brand, how it's performing, of your customer, what they think about you. It's very unemotional. I think that's still really good, but I do think that the lines are being blurred towards almost consulting to a degree, of not just interpreting the right answer, but then taking it to the application to the business. I think that's where that's where we're headed as an industry. I'm not going to go so far as to say management consulting, but certainly that could be an option for a brand, right? For a research agency. The more complete the answer that we provide, the shorter the implementation cycle, and the better the brand performance. And brands are under performance like they've never been before, under pressure like they've never been before, right? Amazon is just kicking everybody's ass, literally.
Yeah.
Even Google, which is the platform by which they're successful, right? Search.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, but it's true. So when these companies, large brands, whether it's Google or TV or pick the area, right?
Right.
How are you going to be successful against Amazon? That's the question that everybody has to answer right now, because everybody's on their heels, whether you're Target or recently Toys R Us, right? Doesn't take a rocket scientist. This is not a prediction. This is just right now,
right?
So we got to get better at what we're doing, and the way that and faster, and the way that we accomplish that, I think, is by the integration of the insight process into purchase,
Right.
That's the piece that I think is a big opportunity. And then the implementation, or the implications, I should say, of that information to the brand.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening to our discussion today. Thank you for bringing it up on Skype, and then also bringing it out to a much broader picture of the market research industry as a whole and how we fit in tech. And thank you, Jamin, for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you, Alexander, for being part of the podcast. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a great day.